Welcome back to the Witch's Way podcast. I'm Kat.
And I'm Jamie. And tonight we are getting into dun 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 love spells and red flags in relationships. Such a hot topic on the internet all the time.
All the time.
We're going to explore how to recognize red flags in relationships. And this is like, you can apply this to love relationships, family relationships, whatever. But then also using love spells ethically. Because I know the red flags and the relationship dissatisfaction and then love spells and control people and gets out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, so specifically, how to use magic to navigate relationships, especially when emotions are heightened by betrayal, loss, or heartbreak. Mm-hmm. We want you to know what a healthy love spell looks like and what spells rooted in fear or control look like, so that you can identify those and recognize where you are.
Yeah.
Like, what are you, if you're thinking of doing a love spell, what's your frame of mind?
Where do your intentions lie?
Yeah, where are your intentions?
Yeah. So it all starts with understanding the ethics of love spells. You know, when we do our Witchcraft 101, what was our whole series? Oh, God.
Beginner Witch series.
The Beginner Witch series. Wow. We haven't done it in 2 years. I guess that's why I'm a little forgetful on that. But when we get into our Beginner Witch series, that is something that we talk about is ethics and building your practice. So that's why understanding the ethics of love spells, it's really important for you to define what your ethical approach is in your witchcraft, in your practice. So why spells for controlling others aren't healthy? Now, if we just were to take out the word spells and why controlling others isn't healthy, we have our answer, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why people think like if I do it with a spell, it's my practice, and they feel, I'm losing my words. They feel like
entitled
to do it. Yeah, I like that.
Like it's he had it coming, she had it coming, kind of thing.
Because it's their spiritual practice. It's like I can hex somebody, I can put a love spell on somebody, I can fuck with someone.
Well, because you have the power to do something doesn't mean that you should do it. And what is the Superman thing? With great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man. Yeah.
Yes.
The Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility. And that's a really good thing to keep in mind when we're talking about love spells, because I have mentioned this in previous podcasts, but I spend a lot of time going through different Facebook groups, and so I see a lot of the conversations going on, and so many of them start with something along the lines of, my husband's having an affair and I want to get rid of her. What's a spell to do that? To make her go away, you know? And they're along those lines, you know, somebody has been betrayed by someone that they love, and they either want to get rid of the person that's the third wheel in the situation, or they want to go back to a place where their relationship with their loved one was healthy, with their lover, husband, whatever it was, healthy. They want to go back,
or they want to get back at them.
Or they want revenge.
They want revenge.
I understand revenge, boy. When my last relationship really hit the point of no return, I really wanted revenge. I sought revenge, and I wasn't into witchcraft at the time, and probably a good thing.
Oh, shit.
Because I probably would have done something that I would later regret or question, like, why did I think that was a good idea? So,
I mean, that's what that comes from, right? Why do spells for controlling others? Like, why do that? Because we would never do that, I think, in regular life, where we would try to control other people. But for some reason in witchcraft, that comes up a lot.
Well, I think one of the things, especially as new witches, that we don't realize is that spell work, actually, at least to me anyway, and I don't know how you feel about this, Jamie.
Let's find out.
But spell work to me is about changing something in yourself or changing something in your own life. It's not about something external. It's like you're trying to bring something into your life, like in a case where you're wounded from, your husband that cheated on you and all this stuff went on in a really bad relationship. At that point, I feel like the spell that you need that would be good for you, that would really serve your soul, would be a self-love spell, a self-care spell. Like turning yourself inward and taking care of yourself and trying to heal from that trauma. Instead, what our initial reaction is so much of the time, because we're humans, And we're hurt.
And we have egos.
And we have egos. And, we just are, a lot of times our initial reaction is payback mode,
Yeah, I think what pain does is it makes us very fragile, and then we're not thinking like our real selves.
We're fragile, and we're also very emotional.
And vulnerable. I mean, there's all these things that we're uncomfortable with. We don't want to be that, right? We want to be healthy and strong and powerful and have our faculties about us. And we don't like that somebody did something to us that we didn't want.
Yeah.
And you have to now decide what you're going to do with that. So the first thing to bring up with love spells is, consent. It's like you're doing a spell for, against, with somebody without their consent,
Is that ethical? Like in your own practice, do you feel that is something, where do you stand? Where's your line on that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that? And that's something each individual witch has to decide for herself. The other thing about is like realize what you're doing with the spell is you're trying to manipulate somebody else with somebody else's emotions or actions through a spell. And in my mind, that crosses an ethical line, an ethical boundary. But again, each witch has to determine for herself, like, where are my ethics? What do I believe is the right thing to do? The thing to remember, I think, is that you can't control other people. You can try to manipulate them, but is that really a healthy thing to do? We just did a podcast. Our last podcast was about beginner witch tools, and we talked about evolving. The practice of witchcraft to us is about evolving to this higher vibration. And what we just covered here, manipulation and trying to control people and make people fall in love with you, or just make people do something that they don't want to do without them even knowing it. Those are not healthy. Those are not healthy actions. Those are not the actions of a healthy person.
That's true. Yeah. I think when we talk about red flags, if somebody was doing this to you, would it be a red flag to you? If somebody was trying to manipulate your emotions, manipulate your actions, get you to do something they wanted, would you think, oh my God, this person really loves me. Look at how much they're doing for me. No, they're doing it for themselves. And if we can step back from our situation and see that if somebody was doing that to us, we would not be okay with it. So I think for me, it's so easy. It's like, fuck no, I wouldn't want that from somebody else. So I definitely wouldn't do that to somebody else.
That's a good way to
kind of analyze your situation.
Yeah, to analyze it, to ask yourself before you go down the path of trying to find a spell to control somebody else or manipulate someone else. Would you be okay with someone
doing it to you,
manipulating you or controlling you?
Finding it out. Yeah.
How would you feel about that? And would that be okay with you?
I mean, it would be a deal breaker, because if they can't respect what I desire for myself and they want to push their own stuff on me, I mean, that's all the things that's why I'm in witchcraft, so that I can do what I want, so that I can't be manipulated by somebody else, so I don't have somebody telling me what to do. That's very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this idea, though, that people get in their heads after having a relationship and it failing because they've been betrayed. And most of the time, what I've run into is a lot of it's cheating. They caught him with somebody else, texting somebody else, sexting somebody else, whatever. Mm-hmm. They want to recreate the perfect past. They want to go back to a place and time when the relationship was really good. And you know where they always go to? Why can't it just be like when we first met? Yeah. We were so in love. Everything was so perfect. No, unfortunately, you were being manipulated then, as you are now, and he or she was going to do whatever the fuck they wanted anyways. And usually people who are spiritual are bright, shiny lights that broken people are attracted to, because they want to suck some of that from us. They want to feel better, and they're like, oh my God, look at that. I like that. That looks good. That looks, like it could make me feel better. And they want to be in our light. They don't want to lose us, so that's why all the sorries come back and all the things, and they
just
promise
think of
to
the
be
energy exchange there.
Yeah.
If you've got somebody with a dark energy or like dark intentions, and when I say dark intentions, I mean they're not being honest, they're not being truthful, they're telling you what you want to hear, and they're stringing you along and getting everything they can out of you because they know eventually it's going to end, and so fuck it, they're just going to take what they can. They're takers.
Ooh, they're going to treat you the way you allow them to treat you. Yeah. This is what I've learned from past situations. I know that in my relationship with my son's father, he always knew that if he dangled my son in front of me sort of is like, you don't want him to grow up without his dad, do you? Man, I would let a lot of shit pass. I would come off of my boundaries. I would allow things to happen that I would have never normally allowed because I had a kid with that person, and they knew it, and they manipulated me using that.
So my big thing was, I've already invested so much time, money, effort, years of my life, and I'm not getting any younger. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to give up, even though things were going to hell in a handbasket. And I could see, although I wouldn't admit it at the time, I could see the end was coming. I did everything I could to stop what was happening from happening. Yeah. And all it did was prolong the abuse that I allowed myself to be subjected to. You know, the mental and emotional. It's not a physical thing, but the emotional abuse. And it made me feel like shit about myself for sticking around and putting up with the crap.
Now, did he ever try to recreate that beginning? Did he ever do things that were like from the beginning of your relationship?
Yeah, there were things that he would, there were gestures and things that he would do, and little sweet things that would remind me of
how good it used to be.
About our early relationship when we were like, it seemed like we were so in sync, and we were in sync. I just don't know, looking back, how real the whole thing was, because I don't really, you can't ever be inside somebody's head and know what they want, right? You can just look at their actions and say, action speaks louder than words. Yeah. So I don't really know in the beginning if maybe he had good intentions or if all along it was just a thing. I believe that at one point he loved me and really cared about me and didn't want to hurt me. But then there, you know, after so many years of being with somebody, shit happens.
I think that whether it's us trying to create that perfect past or the person who we know is not good for us trying to create that perfect past, it really sets us up to have this unrealistic expectations, which cause more harm, because you're almost being traumatized all over again for the first time. Because, you know, they make the promises like, it'll never happen again, or I'll never do that again. Like, that was a mistake. I won't do it again. And you kind of believe it. You're like, okay, they do love me. You want to believe it. And you want to put faith in that. And then when it happens again, you're like, fuck, again? Yeah. Like, I thought we got past this. I thought you weren't going to do that again. But then there's the excuses. No, but it's not this. Too much talking.
Well, and the thing about it is like, even if you decide to go back after, let's say there was a cheating situation, and you decide to forgive your spouse, significant other, your person, you can't undo what's been done, and you're gonna be left with there's going to be residue.
There's going to be,
There's going to be
residual emotional
stuff that you're going to be dealing with, and you're always going to have in the back of your mind, or at least I did. I'll just give you my own experiences.
I've never met anybody because I know two people who went back after cheating, and it could never be the same again, because if they ever did anything that looked like the first cheating, where they didn't answer their phone, or oh, I left my phone in the car. Really? Because that's what happened last time when you were with somebody.
Exactly. It's hard. It's really hard.
You can say you forgive, but I think it's much harder to forget. And your brain you're focused now on what that looks like, what cheating looked like in that situation, which is why we drag so much shit into next relationships with us.
Well, I think, and the point is like, you're never going back to the going back to the place where you were before the cheating happened. Yeah. That your relationship is forever altered. And so you either have to move forward with that understanding and two people, it takes two to tango. So you and your person have to be willing to work from that point forward, because there is no erasing the past. And that's something that's, while we try to recreate the past, we also try to like pretend like it didn't happen. Yeah,
living in denial. Let's just
forget about that. Yeah.
This is why spells that sort of, it's controlling either ourselves or others. I mean, that's the unhealthy part, right? I mean, I don't know. I've never heard anybody saying they wanted a spell for forgetting that somebody cheated on them. I'm not sure.
Or forgiveness.
Forgiveness, but not forgetting it. You know, like there's these things that happen to us with trauma. You know, I will call out sexual trauma or abuse. We want to try to forget those things so that we can move on and be healthy. But forgetting is extremely hard, because it has left an imprint on two sides of your brain: the actions and then the emotional side. Like there's so much you have to conquer with that. So trying to do a spell to control the situation is in my head, it's pointless. Like, no.
So here's 3 things that people often do that cross the line into unethical love spell territory. Okay. So one is manipulating your person's feelings, either by compelling them to feel love for you or feel attracted to you again, or to be attached to you in some way that is against their natural inclination and disregards their free will. Because you can want somebody to like want you and want to love you and want to be with you and all that stuff, but if that's not what they really want to do you actually really want someone to want you that doesn't really want you? Like if they had their own free will, they wouldn't want that, but yet we still seek out. You're living a lie.
You're living a lie.
You're living in a fantasy world.
I think that when you're trying to, again, the word manipulation, you want to manipulate that person to be reciprocal with the feelings that you have for them. Did that once, thought the guy liked me a lot, kept giving him my attention. Then it was like very short phone calls, all this. Then I actually told him, I said, can you just like let me off the hook, please? Like you put out that fucking bait. I took it hook, line, and sinker. I really like you. Like we meshed so well. Now we didn't physically live in the same place, so getting over him was pretty easy. But for a long time, I felt that longing because he built it up in my head. He fucking built it up in my head. I didn't go like, oh my God, I found my perfect person. No, we were good friends. Everything was nice. And we didn't really get physical or anything, but there was this idea that when we both ended up in the same town or place, that there would be something. And so I would stay in contact with him.
So he was like, almost manipulating you.
He was. It was like he needed something to keep him entertained. That's how I felt towards the end of it. I was like, can you just let me go, please? Like, stop texting me. Don't call me. You don't want this. This isn't real. Yeah. You know, there's not. But I was already sort of falling for this idea. Oh, I was falling for a lie.
Which is like this artificial bond, right? It's almost like an artificial bond that is created because somebody's manipulating somebody else with words or actions.
Yeah.
And so it creates this, like, you really thought you guys had a thing.
Yeah, I thought we had a really strong connection.
You really thought that, and then after a time, you realize he's just stringing you along, and you're like...
And for what? He wasn't even getting sex or anything. Like, I don't know why he had me.
Yeah, so...
I want to say on the sidelines, but I kind of wasn't because we weren't in the same place. But there was an emotional connection, and then I always thought that it would go further. And he was always saying how he wanted it so bad and how I was like the perfect girl for him, blah, 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 blah. Feeding me all the things. I was like, yes, fluff
telling
up
you all the things you wanted to hear.
Yes, my feathers are fluffing up. I'm like, ooh, girl, look at me. I'm ready.
He was manipulating.
He was, yeah. It was hard to see because I thought we built a bond that was very trustful and meaningful.
You know what? These are such hurtful things to talk about. And if you're listening to this and you're going through it, just know we're just...
I have so much compassion for you right now.
You know,
I do.
We empathize with you so much. And none of this is, even though we might laugh at some points where we're saying it because we're like, it sounds so, you know, ridiculous
out loud when we're admitting it.
When you're saying it, just know that we both of us have been in these situations where we really loved somebody and wanted that relationship to work out, and we've tried to do things. It may have not been spells at the time, but it might have been some other way
wishful
that we tried
thinking, energy that we put into it, phone calls, pictures, like whatever it was, trying to stay connected to somebody who truly wasn't really that interested in us.
Okay, so the first thing we talked about in terms of crossing lines into unethical love spell territory was manipulating somebody's feelings. The second thing is doing spells for surveillance, like truth spells or come clean spells or bring delight spells. Those are other types of spells. Like, actually, if you really thought about it and you wanted to face the truth, would you really need a surveillance spell? Or I feel like if you feel you need a surveillance spell, you already know.
You already know. I think the broken trust is there. I think you already have the suspicions. We've never talked on this podcast about women's intuition, but I think we all have intuition about what's going on with other people. And there's an opposite side to this, you guys, that's not for this podcast. But if you have those things, you also might not be well enough to get into a relationship. If you already have suspicions early on, that can be a thing. Yeah, you know?
Absolutely.
I do think that I have done come to light spells, right? Because I knew people were doing shit. And I was like, I want this shit to be brought to the light. Like, that's it. I'm not looking for anything. I'm over it. I'm not in the relationship. This was relationships that were not romantic, that I just knew. And I was like, bring this shit to the light, man. Like, let other people see what this person really is about.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to happen to anybody else, you know? And this is friendships that I'm mostly talking about.
Yeah.
Work relationships. That people are being devious and they're manipulating everybody around you, but you see through the bullshit. So I will say a bring to light spell for me, it had a great effect, but it was more about, and I guess it is about the truth coming out, but it's like, I wanted the person to get caught. You know, I wanted them to get caught up in their lies. I wanted people to see them for what they were.
And I think that when we're in relationships where we have a partner that we don't trust, and we're like, I know you're doing something on the side, so it's like a bring to light spell. That's an unhealthy thing, because if we back up a couple steps, it's like you already don't trust them. So already the relationship is unhealthy because you don't feel like you can trust this person.
Yeah. Do you want to know the outcome of my spell?
Sure.
Nothing happened.
Nobody was exposed.
Nobody was exposed. He never got found out. Like nothing ever came about from that spell that was satisfying to me. So, and I was 23 when I did that spell. I don't have as much emotion, but you know, because I don't talk about it. But it's like bringing it up. This guy was just a fucking bad influence for everybody at work. I was like, oh my God, can somebody catch him doing something? You know, he never got caught. Nope.
At least not while you were around.
Not while I was around, yeah. And obviously I stopped feeding it. I didn't give it energy. Once I moved away from that command, this was in the Navy. Once I moved away from that command, I was like, yeah, whatever, fuck off, I don't care.
Yeah,
I got better things to spend my energy on.
Because it does suck your energy.
Yeah. So there's a point to this where you're focused on these things that are really unhealthy. You're dragging yourself down as well.
Absolutely.
And I think that witches who have been practicing a while, that's why all of us are on these groups saying, fucking forget it, walk away, leave it. Yeah. Because we've been there, done that,
and
right?
That, you know what, and that's hard. I see a lot of those posts where it's like somebody's asking for a spell for some kind of retribution, or make him fall in love with me again, take us back to a place where he once loved me, make her go away. All these things, right? All these things to try to change what's happening. And those are all unhealthy places to be. They're not good for us. They're not elevating us. But it's hard to see so many people when you see a post that's asked for a spell, to see everybody say, just leave him. You don't need him. You need a divorce, you know.
Yeah.
Just all, you know.
That's also not helpful.
It's, you know, I mean, it's hard to hear that when you're the one that's going through it.
Yeah, through the painful thing.
So I think, you know, the way to look at it is to look at the behavior and ask yourself, is this a healthy behavior? So another one, a third thing that people can do that crosses this unethical love spell into unethical love spell territory is when we try to do binding spells that bind someone to stay in a relationship with us. And you know what? We don't know what other people's journeys are. We don't know what their journeys need. And it's not fair or right, in my opinion anyway, ethical for us to try to step into their journey and alter their journey, because they're on their own. We're each here on our own path. And it's as hard as that may be to accept when you're in a relationship and you come to the point in the relationship where there's a fork in the road and you realize that the two of you are not on the same journey. Yeah. You know, is it fair for us to try to keep this person on our journey when they need to go on their way because they've got their lessons to learn?
Yeah. And we don't know how it saves us either. Like,
that's true.
You know, I think back to my relationship with my son's father. If I had let him go earlier, I could have moved on a lot faster, you know, and instead you stay and you stay and you stay, right?
Oh my God.
But I should have realized a lot earlier that our paths were aligned for about 2 years, maybe even less. And I couldn't come to terms with that. Like, my ego said, absolutely not. I am not going to be a single mom. I promised myself I wouldn't do that. I'm not doing it to my kid. And because I had such I don't know what you would even call that, a stubbornness to accepting that, I just wouldn't. And that's why I gave chance after chance after chance after chance.
Well, I think we get in our minds, you know, we see this future, we imagine this whole life, right? And then we've already tried to bring it into reality by thinking about it so much, and we have this vision of, and then things don't start lining up because the other person's not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing that's going to get us down this road, right? And then all of a sudden we're left with this, like, but this is what I really wanted, and this is what I really need.
Yeah.
And so it really becomes about us, and it becomes very selfish and self-centered.
Controlling. It becomes very controlling.
We're trying to control. I know I've done that in my past relationships.
Me too.
Where I try to control. So, an interesting lift. So, we can see how controlling love spells can be tempting when we're feeling vulnerable and hurt and angry and all of these things that we feel when a relationship is breaking down and we're not wanting to accept what's happening. But what about when the relationships end and we find ourselves holding on to something that might not be healthy to revive? This brings us to an understanding of how and why relationships may reach their natural end, even with magic involved. I held on to my last relationship for more than 15 years because I loved him, number one. That was the beginning part of it. And then because I'd spent so much time on it and I'd believed all the shit that he told me. I believed him when he was like, I really love you. I want to be the man. You're the only one that can, what did he used to say? You make me want to be the man I know I should be, or something along those lines. That line where they tell you, it's only with you that I can be the man I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And you fall for that shit because it's
fucking romance movies. That's why Hollywood did us dirty again. Fucking hell. Yeah. The reality of relationships having closure and moving on is that spells can't undo what has already happened. No spell erases past actions. No, none of them.
Yeah.
You can't bring somebody back without personal change and growth. And maybe that's the way you can be okay in the beginning with letting them go. Let them go so they can grow. Let them go so they can have their own experiences, and you're not momming them to death, and you're not fucking wiping their ass and picking up after them and doing all the things that you're annoyed with. Let them go. Let them go see what the real world is like.
Oh, you know what? The side note of that is crazy. What? When you let them go to go grow, you're going to grow too.
You're going to grow so much.
You're going to grow too, because once you're away from it, you're going to start to realize how much better your life is without having to be a mother to a 35-year-old child.
A man-child. It's just, I think that when we're so wrapped up in a relationship, sometimes we lose sight of ourselves.
We absolutely do. I've done it in almost every relationship
Who
I've been in.
Who hasn't done it? Call us, please. Email us if you've
never done that. Yeah, we want to
say that.
We want to have you as a guest speaker on here because we want to know.
Come educate us and let us know how you didn't lose yourself when you were in love with somebody that you.
Yeah, really, we do want to know.
Is there a movie about that yet?
Can you reach out, please, if you're listening to us and you're one of those people who's never let that happen? We want to talk. So relationship outcomes involve both people.
Yeah.
And, this is what taking responsibility looks like.
Yeah.
Discuss the importance. Oh, I'm not reading this right.
No. I think what we're trying to say is that the outcome of your relationship is not single-sided. It requires both people taking responsibility for what has happened. We can claim, like Kat and I think we would both be like, we were in the right the whole time. We don't do anything fucking wrong. We're always right. We know what we're doing. But
I think I'm better. That's all.
God, don't even get me started on that. I know.
Listen, I'm much more. I'm smarter than you. I mean, although then why the fuck did you manipulate the hell out of me? That fucks me up right there.
Okay.
That's something
crushing. For you.
That's like kind of like soul crushing when I think I'm so smart, and then I allowed myself to be manipulated by a motherfucker who's like, I love you, and then the sex was really good. So I'm like, you stupid ass.
Yeah. So have you done the reflection work that it takes to answer that question for you? You are so smart. I know how incredibly intelligent you are because you're my mother. But that also gave me the air of like, I'm smarter than every motherfucker out there too. But we both have been taken.
Well, I have done the reflection part, and I do realize I do realize some of my own unhealthy habits in the relationship that but did lead to the breakdown of it. Things like passive aggressive behaviors and not, you need open lines of communication. You really do. You've got to be able to talk about stuff, and you can't. And this is something that I would do when I would get mad. I wouldn't talk to my person for a couple of days as a form of punishing them. And that's just like, that's so fucking unhealthy.
What are all the ways that women punish men when they're mad at them?
I saw this hilarious TikTok.
Oh, shit.
Oh my God, this hilarious TikTok where like, it's a guy sitting down at the table. It's like different guys, right? And it's like when you're serving your husband, when you're pissed off, and she's like throwing the plate on the table and throwing the food on there. And he's like, what is the matter?
Yeah.
Like he's so confused because you're mad. And we do this as women. I feel like women do this a lot. Like we get mad about something and then we don't, instead of addressing
we don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it because we don't want to, either we can't talk about it or we don't know how to talk about it. We don't know how to talk about it where we feel like it's going to be a conversation and not just a bitch session or whatever. We don't know how to express ourselves. And then what we do is these passive aggressive behaviors where we're stomping around the house, slamming doors, taking the car and going off and on a shopping spree and stuff and spending money, or just going out with our girlfriends and be like, I'm leaving,
and no explanation, no communication.
I mean, I've done that shit. And then you wonder why the relationship breaks down over time. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Two wrongs don't equal a right, or whatever they say.
Something like that.
So I think that when the relationship is ended, it is very healthy for us to reflect over what part did you have in the ending.
Yeah.
Be it big or small. And if it is something that's like cheating and there's the red flags of, you kept ignoring stuff or you wouldn't address it or you just leaned into the relationship more instead of asking questions. These are ways that when we get out of these unhealthy things that we can grow ourselves. You have to get out of the situation to really be able to reflect and grow from it. I know that in a lot of women that I've coached, they want to reach back out to the person and they want to say, is this what was really going on in your head? Because we can't read people's minds.
Right.
And they want that, validation that like, oh, okay, now I see it. Is this what was really going on? And what I always try to tell them is you had a breakdown in communication when you were in the relationship, and if they have already moved on, they are not thinking about the ways that all this went wrong, and it's not going to be healthy to restart some shit that just gets you back involved.
Yeah.
Like this is where we use spiritual practices like ask tarot. You can go get a reading. You can, any other form of divination.
Well, I think if you have to ask the question, you already know the answer. Honestly, like because if you've thought about it and then you want confirmation of it, the fact that you want to ask for confirmation is your confirmation. It's kind of like no is an answer. Or silence is an answer.
Yeah, silence is an answer.
Silence is an answer, and the answer is no to whatever that was. But I feel like if you're at the point where you want to go back and try to rehash it, you're like either not moved on, or you already know what the answer is, and you don't really want to face it because it hurts. I mean,
you're still looking for validation outside of yourself.
Yeah.
This is work that we need to do on our own when we get out of unhealthy relationships and owning what we did in it. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I did do all that passive aggressive shit. I'm trying to think of anything that I did, but I did things that benefited him, which really made me mad in the end. We would fight, he would leave, I would fucking clean the house. And if the fight was over the fucking chores not being done, like the equal responsibilities, this is where one time this really fucked with my head. We were not together, but we share a child. So I was visiting him. I was taking Cameron to see him in Georgia, and we were just talking about relationship stuff because we weren't together. It was like, fuck it, whatever, ha ha ha, laughing at our dumb shit that we did before. And he said, I knew exactly how to get you to clean the house. And I'm like, what? It never occurred to me. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I would just fight with you, and then I would leave, and I'd come back the next day, and the house would be clean. And inside, I exploded in anger. But we're not together. I can't fight about that with him now because we're not even in a relationship. But the fact that he knew how to manipulate me. He watched my habits. And he knew exactly what he was doing. So if you can find those habits within your relationships that was like, this would happen, then that would happen, then this would happen. Boom. You're looking at your part in the relationship. You're looking at how you were either manipulated or manipulated them. But that's how we discover it, is when you look back at the patterns from those relationships.
So taking responsibility and seeing the past clearly can be tough.
It's so tough.
It's so fucking hard, you guys. Listen, like I said, if you're going through this, we feel you. It's like, but it's essential if we want to use magic in a way that aligns with wisdom and compassion. Now, let's talk about how to handle situations like cheating or betrayal while protecting our well-being. And this is really hard because I feel like, for me anyway, and I don't know that everybody feels this way, but betrayal for me is something that I can't.
You can't move past.
I can't come back from it.
No, I don't think I can either.
It's something that my very first relationship with my son's father, he cheated on me when John was like 3 weeks old, and I could never get over it. And you know what I told myself? I don't have to get over it. Fuck you.
Fuck you. Yeah.
You don't have. There's no excuse. I'm sorry. Keep your dick in your pants. And if you can't do that, then we're not aligned, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel very strongly about infidelity.
Yeah. I always wondered how children didn't equal commitment with people. Like, maybe you choose not to get married, you know? But you have a child together. How is that not a commitment? And these are the unspoken terms that we make up in our head that we never discuss.
Yeah.
And
it's those conversations that we're not having.
Yeah, it can lead to that disappointment, that hurt, that like we're not on the same page thing.
So here's some practical magic for relationship challenges. Advice in situations involving cheating and abandonment or betrayal, which are just really, I think these are the most devastating as women, especially for women, especially if we spend any amount of time in the relationship, if we have children, if we got married, if we bought a house, if we did all of these things that we thought we were supposed to do. So what do we do? What can we do to take care of ourselves when we have been betrayed or abandoned or cheated on in a way that is just so... It just feels so soul crushing. Yeah. Like it's so devastating. I'm surprised I didn't end up in a crazy house. You know, like I almost felt like I needed to be committed when at one point in my relationship with him, with my last person, because it was so it impacted me. It impacted every cell in my body. So, what can we do?
Well, what I think about what happens when we are the deep, ultimate betrayals like that is you really lose love for yourself because it leaves you feeling guilty. You wonder if you're enough. You wonder why. You
don't feel like you're enough.
Like that's all the things.
There must be something wrong with me.
You're not good
I'm not
enough.
Lovable.
Yeah.
I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not whatever. I'm not enough.
There's all enough. I'm not because you're not her or you're not him, you're not them. You know, when we get to that place because somebody has done an action that hurts us so bad, we start to really lose love for ourselves. Yeah. And this is when self-care is needed immediately to revive us. Like I would say not necessarily as just a spell, but as a ritual. Every fucking day do something that makes you feel like you love yourself. I don't care if it's like today I can only like my toes. Like I love my toes. But start picking all these things about you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually that are good about you and surround yourself with people who also find you awesome, who know you're amazing. You know, you need that circle. I know a lot of times we want to close ourselves off and kind of hide in our shame.
And sometimes we need that for a minute, but it's not a good place to stay for a long period of time.
Let the people love you who love you. Yeah. You know, connect with them. Go back to that place. I think that, so for self-love, it's not just spells, but it's rituals. It's something that you do every day.
Yeah, I think it's almost more. You can start with a spell, but then you've got to follow that up. You know, the rituals would be like feeding the spell of self-love. So it would be doing the things, the rituals, the cleansing baths or the spending time in nature, whatever. Those are all things that would feed that self-love spell.
Because I've heard before in relationships that where there was infidelity is that one of the people was so stressed out that they weren't themselves anymore. And so the other partner felt so distant. They're like, I don't even know who you are. So I started falling for somebody else because we lost our connection. We lost, we live together, but we're strangers, or we're roommates now. We don't have that connection anymore. And learning to love yourself again after that, even if this works out and you guys stay together, or if you don't, the focus of bringing yourself to a higher vibration it is more attractive. It is the lovable thing to do, right? Like, people are going to be around you if you feel better about yourself. And so confidence, I have found in relationships where I coached for cheating, it's the lack of confidence. That the lack of confidence in one person had another person seeking, I don't want to say power. It's not power, but it's like the passion or the assertiveness that they needed, where the other person lacked the confidence because gaining weight after a baby or whatever. It's like they didn't feel connected anymore. They're like, you're not who you were when I met you. Well, fuck no, I'm not. I've been through some shit. Love me anyways. But we got to take care of ourselves also. Like that, I think that's part of our responsibility. And to speak what we need. Say, hey, I'm having a really hard time. I need you to give me a minute. Like, I love you. I still want to be in this relationship. But if we pull back and we just expect the other person to carry the weight of the relationship, that's unrealistic,
Yeah.
So loving yourself, healing yourself, using that clarity of what's really going on rather than retribution or controlling that other person and telling them, like, no, you need to be here every night, but I can't talk to you because I'm in a place right now.
Yeah.
Fuck,
Yeah. Well, that's like owning your part of it.
Yeah.
Owning your part of it.
I think people can't read minds either. You need to say the things, whether you write them a fucking letter.
And I was really bad about that.
Not
like
speaking
I said,
up.
I was like so passive aggressive.
Yeah.
It was just my way. Maybe it was a control thing for me,
Was it your way or the highway?
It was my way or the highway.
That's what I got told all the time. It was my way or the highway. Like, I swear that was going to go on my fucking headstone. Because everybody said that to me. And I'm like, but I just know better than you. So just listen to me and everything will be fine. That's where I learned I was controlling and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. My biggest probably downfall in all my relationships was the not talking and using silence as a weapon, to punish somebody because I was mad. And then, but them not even knowing, I just assumed that, talk about reading minds.
Yeah.
I assumed they knew what pissed me off, whatever they did that pissed me off. And a lot of times they didn't. Because some of it was in my own head,
Yeah.
And you've got to communicate with people and tell them why whatever they did has upset you in a way that is mature, I guess would be probably the best way to say it, is like non-emotional and mature.
That's why writing it down, I found that like writing it first
and not attacking
helped.
them, but like,
Yeah.
you fucker, whatever, bullshit like that.
Man, Mom, I was
so bad.
I wasn't going to say I was so bad. I was so fucking, I don't even know, so Virgo that before I would go in to talk about what I was upset about, I had lists. Like, I had to write shit down so I wouldn't get sidetracked by the way that they would try to bring up other shit in the circles we would run.
I love that. That was a really smart thing to do.
I had to, because I found myself being...
I let my emotions get the best of me. That was my vibe, like I was all running on emotion, being the Scorpio that I am. And being the Scorpio that I am, the things that would come out of my mouth were really mean.
Vicious, yeah.
Vicious is a better word for it. So.
Well, I think that if you're looking at working with forgiveness over whatever betrayal has happened, be sure that forgiveness is really possible for you, and not thinking like you have the right now to make them, air quotes, pay for it later. Like, because somebody wronged you and you chose to stay in a relationship with them, a huge red flag is when people try to make other people pay for that past mistake, even though you said, oh, okay, there's forgiveness and I want to stay together. And yet they're still shitty to you. Yeah. Like, you never move on from it. You keep it in the back of your head and you're like, well, I'll just fucking do this because guess what? 3 years ago, he cheated and now he's going to pay. Yeah. Or whatever comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually thought that. I was like,
oh, shit.
You cheated. I'm going to go out and fuck somebody now. So fuck you.
I never understood that. I have had many friends who felt the same way and they were like,
I didn't do it, but I thought it.
Yeah, they thought it too. They told me to do shit like that. I was like, first off, I don't just fuck random people. If you know me at all, that's crazy.
The only reason I didn't do it is because the thought of it was so unsatisfying.
So gross.
It was so unsatisfying. I'm like, what am I going to get out of that?
Right.
What am I getting out of that?
That is sad.
But, there is a way. So we talked about banishing spells earlier on in this. We talked about banishing spells, but there is a way to use banishing spells in a good way, and that is for clearing toxic energy and letting go of the past and letting go of the pains without trying to control somebody else. So the focus, if you're doing banishing spells, needs to be on you. What do you want to get out of your own? What do you want to let go of? Like for me, it might have been my passive aggressive ways. So one of the things that I think about now at my age is like, will there be another love for me? I don't know. There could be. I'm open to that. But I also realize that there's all these bad habits that I had in these relationships that contributed to the demise of it, even though it might have been headed there in the beginning. I mean, I don't know. You can't ever tell. You can't predict. But there were a lot of bad habits that I had that I definitely recognize now, and I need to make sure that I don't take those into a new relationship. So a banishing spell to release the things that you need to let go of, the bad habits that you need to let go of. So that's how you can use banishing spells in a way that is positive for you, that can help you grow, and that you can kind of use banishing spells almost as like a personal shield. Like, I'm going to banish this passive aggressive habit that I have of doing this, and so I'm not going to do that shit anymore.
You're not going to let that back into your space.
I'm not going to let that back into my space. And I know enough now, because I've done it enough times, to recognize that behavior, to be like, cut that shit off.
And the only reason that you can recognize it is because you've reflected on it.
Yes.
Because you've done the work to think about the things that have been your patterns.
I definitely have. Yeah.
That's a huge part of this, People think witchcraft is like all the extra shit going on, but truly, like, just sitting with yourself and looking at your own fucking life, that is really transformative. Recognizing what you've done, your patterns with people, your patterns in relationships, like very,
being
very
honest with yourself about your role in the different relationships that you have and the breakdown of those relationships. Like, really think about, it's easy to point at the other person and go, but you, blah, 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 check mark,
placing
whatever
blame
they
on
did.
Others,
placing the blame on them. It's harder to look at yourself and say, what did I do in this? And that's where you really have growth, is when you can look at yourself and say, here's the things that I did to contribute to this.
To the downfall of the relationship.
To the downfall. Here's the things that I did that contributed to the breakdown of the marriage or the breakdown of the relationship.
Yeah.
That were not helpful. Things that I did that were not helpful. So, speaking of future relationships, that I may or may not have, I don't know. I'm leaving it up to the universe.
I don't know if I'm looking forward to it or dreading it. I don't know. We spend so much time together. It would be hard to walk in here and have like a man's energy in here. I just don't even know how that...
You know what? It's so funny, because I just told your sister the other day, it's like, I don't want to share.
Is she controlling?
I don't want to share my life with anybody right now. That's where I'm at. It's like, I don't want to share my space. And I don't want to share my energy. It's like, that's just where I am today. I don't know if that's going to change, because I'm definitely evolving all the time.
Well, I think what's really important to note about your particular path that you've led since you were young is that there haven't been many times when you've been able to be alone.
That's true.
So
I went
being
from
alone
one
with
relationship to the next.
Yeah, so being alone with yourself now for the last 5 years, I mean, you've really, the growth that I've seen in you, fucking incredible. I mean.
Well, and it feels good to, be in a space where I can look back on these things and go like, wow, I really shouldn't have done that. And I'm talking about in my intimate relationships.
Sure.
Like, God, that was really shitty.
Yeah.
I'm better than that.
So now with these 5 years, you're able to sort of set intentions for your future relationships because you know yourself so much, right?
I could do that when I ever get to the, if and when, and I'm sort of like, what I've said is like, I'm leaving it up to the universe. I'm not seeking a relationship, but yeah, if I finally do get to the point where I want one, then I'm going to absolutely manifest the guy that I think would be a good fit for me, that would allow me to have my space and
that aligns with your own path.
That aligns with me, because my own, who I am, like so I'm Scorpio, you guys, and I'm like that Scorpio that you hear about, that really fucking intense person that goes to the dark place a lot, and I can't change that. It's who I am. So I need somebody who's going to give me space and allow me to be in that dark space when I'm in that dark,
and not take it personally,
and not take it like it's something to do with them, because it's not. And I've had to deal with that over time too. With somebody like, what did I do? It's not you. I'm just I'm going through my cycle. I'm going through my cycle, and not my period. I'm talking about a cycle where that Scorpios, I feel like we all go through these times of the year where, sometimes it's really light, and then other times we're really like in a dark space and we're trying to figure shit out, and we're, You
need introspection. You need time to reflect and be alone. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, we can, though, something that we can do that is really healthy is to use spells to attract healthy partnerships and create space for growth rather than lingering in the past. And and while that's really hard to say when a betrayal first happens and you're so hurt and you're so you're so immersed in those emotions of that, when you can get some clarity, if you can get away from it, if you can spend some time in nature so you can get out of that and realize that this is a temporary situation and you're going to get past this. Mm-hmm. So what is it going to look like when you get past this, and where do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want in the future? That healthy relationship could be with the person that you're with, because let's face it, people can change and people can grow.
Change, definitely.
And I mean, I don't think that every time somebody cheats that's the end of it. There are lots of people who've been able to move past that, but it has to be a joint, there has to be a mutual understanding and conversations around it and things like that. And the person who was hurt has to be able to move past that hurt.
Giving yourself time to heal and love yourself again. Yeah. And that other person too, they need time to heal because they realize they committed something that was bad and hurtful to somebody that they may have loved. And they may forever be in that remorseful state and trying to make it up to the other person, but we need to allow some time in between there for each person to find their footing again. Yeah. Because it's like you fell off that path from that relationship, and coming back together can be difficult. Didn't I tell you about the people that were married? And they're much older now, but they were married, they got divorced, they spent about 5 years away from each other, and then they got married again.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot, people that remarry after some time apart because they had time to reflect on the things, and they both wanted their relationship, but they needed some time apart to get their own selves together to where they could be that best partner for the other person. So
I think allowing people that time away, what is that stupid thing? If you love them, let them go. Okay. I mean, I don't know, I don't really know where that makes sense, but I do understand that if you love somebody and they need time away from you, that's why we talked about binding them to the relationship is really selfish. Give them time to go explore who they are, who they want to become, what they need to do,
Yeah, and while you're allowing them to do that, you go on your own journey.
Yeah.
You go on your own journey of self-reflection and growth. Discovery.
Healing, love,
because what you might find out after a period of time is that once you've had time to reflect on it and really is you'll realize something, like that's not really where you wanted to be.
Yeah.
So allow yourself, give yourself that time to reflect.
Yeah. This happened a lot with military is high school boyfriend girlfriends didn't want to break up, so they would try to stay together for those first couple of years, and you've got people on two totally different journeys, whether whoever's staying back in the hometown, whoever's going into the military, man, you're exposed to so much, you're changing dramatically.
That's why I didn't want you to get married the first time.
It was stupid of me to do that. I did that just to piss you off, I think.
She got married. So we're talking about military couples.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm just going to quickly tell the story.
That's fine, yeah.
I'm just going to quickly tell the story. So she had a high school boyfriend, and she already knew she was going to the Navy. He knew. She went off to the Navy. And I don't know. I think she said something to him like, well, if you come to Guam, I'll marry you.
Listen, I ended it with him. I had no problem. This wasn't like a love story. This wasn't my high school sweetheart. No, it was a relationship of convenience. And we both just agreed.
But she married him.
Okay, but he wanted to marry me. And I was in my stage where I really didn't know how to say what I wanted. And I was just like, I went along with things. And it was difficult when he made a
grand gesture.
Yeah, such a big gesture. I was like, oh my God, like he really wants to be with me.
He's really serious about this, right?
So,
well, and for my part, as her mother watching this, all I could think about him going, so she's in the military. She's been in the military for a while. And now I don't know how long it was, 6 months before you were stationed in Guam?
Oh, almost a year. Yeah.
A year. So she's been in the military almost a year. Mm-hmm. She gets stationed in Guam. he follows her there, and all I could think about is he's
even a year after that, almost. Well, maybe like 8 months.
I mean, all I could think about is this motherfucker's going to be riding her coattails while she works her ass off and with her career. And because I already knew she wanted to make the Navy a career,
lifelong.
And so I didn't have any respect for a guy that had shit going on and was willing to go across the world to the other side of the world, wherever Guam is, and hang out and just be like the house husband. I was just like,
which I never wanted kids, so there was really no purpose. This
is not a good thing. And I tried so hard, and I remember I remember when she called me, and I was in the break room, the kitchen of my office, talking to her on the phone, and I was so distraught because she's like, we're getting married on the beach. And I was like, please don't do this. It's a mistake. And she would not listen to me.
My mom telling me no almost made me want to do it more.
Yeah,
which
that's
was really,
the thing about being a mom. You got to be careful what you do, because you can actually push your kids into doing shit that they wouldn't have done unless you opened your fucking mouth and tried to stop them.
Hey, when you thought I was going to run away when I wasn't, then I ran away. I was like, fuck this shit, you know? But anyways, it did end with like neither of us being satisfied, and I basically ran away from him. But you know what led that relationship to go that far, where I said yes because he flew there, is it was better than being alone. And I guess that's kind of how I felt. I was like, you're more comfortable in a familiar hell than an unfamiliar heaven. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but that's what happened.
I think that happens. I think women end up in relationships a lot of times like that, because we're just like, it's better than being alone.
Yeah, it's convenient.
And then you get to a certain age, you're like, no, being alone is better.
Yep, I've been there.
But it takes a lot to get there.
Yeah.
So,
you know, relationships can be one of life's greatest teachers, showing us our deepest desires and insecurities. By approaching love spells with wisdom, self-responsibility, and a commitment to ethical magic, we can really create the foundation for healthier, more fulfilling relationships. I truly do believe that. And remember that magic works best when it's guided by respect and love. I'm going to throw in there love and respect for yourself and for others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Until next time, witches.
Till next time.
We'll see ya. Bye.